Ghost on the collar. Perfume lies for a living. It promises gardens in winter, thunder in a bottle, innocence that can be sprayed on skin. I should know. I'm the liar who makes it. I blend the ghosts of plants and metals until strangers think memory is a thing they can wear. On good days, I believe it too. I'm Mark. My studio is wedged above a florist and below a yoga class that sounds like laughter learning to breathe. The room keeps the temperature a polite secret. Maceration hates drama. Amber bottles squat on metal shelves like monks at attention. My pipettes stand ready in a ceramic cup. Everything is labeled to keep me honest. I've learned to trust laws that smell like patience. Clara says my work is seduction disguised as chemistry. She's my partner and a book designer whose hands make words look better than they deserve. We live by a handful of rules we wrote on the inside of a matchbox. Tell each other before, not after. No strangers in our bed. Don't break what we can fix. The matchbox sits by the kettle, nicotine-stained paper holding our discipline like a relic from the religion of honesty. We're not saints. We're careful. The day the city decided to flex its hunger, a woman came into my studio with rain on her coat and a grin that knew how photographs worked. "You must be Mark," she said, as if she'd been practicing the way my name would taste. "Everyone admits they leave a room smelling better after you." "I do what I can," I said, "and you are." "Celeste Armand," she said, offering a hand without a ring but with the certainty of 10 rings. "I need a fragrance that behaves like an alibi, soft enough to be forgiven, memorable enough to be missed when it isn't there." "We're writing a story then," I said. "Who's the narrator?" "My husband believes in causes that require tuxedos," she said. "I prefer causes that happen between two people built for the same room." The sunlight moved across her cheekbones as if it had been asked to audition. "Can you make something that smells like the moment before you do a foolish thing and call it brave?" "You want a top note of possibility," I said, already reaching for bergamot, that tidy spark. "A heart of heat without sweetness. A base that knows how to keep secrets." "You talk like a man who's been forgiven," she said, not teasing. "I talk like a man who used to think forgiveness was a form of perfume," I said. "Take a seat." I dripped citrus into a beaker, tempered it with a green bite. Galbanum is a refusal with good posture, and coaxed the air toward her with the back of my hand. She leaned in, eyes closed, mouth parted, a body learning a new language. "Again," she murmured, "and dirtier." Labdanum, a lick of cumin, the rumor of skin rather than the shout, the smallest drop of castoreum for leather-warm breath. She shivered almost imperceptibly and looked at me as if I'd been caught listening at a door. "You're good," she said. "I'm practiced," I said. She commissioned an edition of 10 bottles. "For the nights when I need to know who I am," she said, "and for one friend who tells me the truth whether I want it or not." When she left, the room kept her like a secret. Citrus, warmth, the metallic cool that happens to skin after it makes a decision. I opened the window and the city came in like a rumor. Clara came home late that night with ink on her knuckles and the kind of fatigue that looks good on people who earned it. We ate soup in bowls that didn't match and she asked, without heat, "Did you fall in love today?" "Professionally," I said. "She's married to her own story. I'm just giving it a soundtrack." Then I told her about Celeste because the matchbox rule is a jealous god. "Before," Clara said, tapping the cardboard with one fingernail. "Thank you. Keep our house thick with what we can say out loud." We kissed, slow, not promising anything special, and slept like people convinced morning still wants them. The first gala came and went on the news with a sweep of camera pans. Celeste floated through rooms as if the air had rehearsed her. Her husband, Adam Armand did the handshake choreography men practice in private. He had the face of a man who liked being liked. His tuxedo had the fit of a second mouth. 2 days later, Celeste returned with a scarf that smelled like a confession. "The fragrance worked," she said, draping it over my wrist as though it were a ribbon at a race. "I remembered the person I am when no one's watching." "And who's that?" "Someone who writes letters with her body and expects a reply." She stepped closer. The scarf scent rose between us, the common whisper, the leather warmth, the citrus still awake, and then something else faint and mineral, a masculine fougere that had dried down to a good memory. I raised the scarf, inhaled the geometry of it, and glanced at her. "Your friend has excellent taste," I said lightly. "He does," she said, with a smile that didn't apologize. "The thing about scent is that it binds to memory." After she left, what lingered wasn't just the perfume I'd made. It was the shape of her breath when she realized she'd tell the truth and call it wanting. I worked until the light failed, refining her formula, leaning on cedar where I'd been tempted to use ambroxan, choosing the animal hum of civet over the asphalt swagger of ISO E-Super. I wanted the fragrance to wear like a decision. She came back for the second bottle with rain on her collar again. I dabbed the scent on her pulse with a glass wand and felt the thrum there the way a road feels a motorbike go by. We stood too close, two professionals negotiating a friendly lie. Her gaze flicked to my mouth and away. I stepped back. She didn't follow. That was the conversation. "Before," I texted Clara an hour later, while I wiped the bench so hard the wood smelled like spice. "This one is trouble." "Then be better than your hands," she replied, "and come home with them clean." The trouble, when it arrived, didn't pose as romance. It came as work. Adam called me. It was his assistant, but voices like his carry ownership, to ask for a private commission for our foundation's patrons. A custom scent to spray discreetly at events, something that would make people think the evening had taste. They wanted a label embossed with their crest. They wanted a story about the top notes. They wanted to stand there and say, "We believe in art," and make it smell true. "We can iterate," I said in the conference room where glass pretends privacy isn't a joke. Celeste sat at the end of the table like a question mark that had decided not to be a period. We tested accords. A black tie cologne that behaved like a maritime yacht, a velvet oriental that tried too hard to charm, a green fig whisper that folded itself in shame. The room smelled like decisions. Celeste and I met each other's eyes rarely, and when we did, we let our expressions be blank because a blank look behaves like a lock. On the third session, after Adam was pulled into a call by a voice that made its own weather, Celeste touched the back of my hand with 2 fingers, like a pianist asking permission from a difficult chord. "We need to stop pretending this doesn't exist," she said, the same sentence any city writes on bathroom mirrors at midnight. "Do you want it to exist?" I asked. "Yes," she said, "but I don't want your house burning to keep mine warm." We booked a room on the far side of the river in a hotel that had decided not to be stylish because style goes out of fashion and hospitality doesn't. In the elevator, she took my hand and laughed under her breath. In the room, we didn't waste it. I won't inventory anatomy. I'll say this: touch is a language. We were fluent. She was fierce without cruelty, generous without performance. When she came apart, it was with her eyes open, as if refusing to steal from herself the sight of what she was doing. After, we lay on our backs like conspirators who had agreed that victory meant leaving quietly. She traced a line from my shoulder to the hollow at my hip and said, "This is the kind of thing that makes God reconsider rules." I kissed her wrist where the pulse wrote its own telegram and tried not to memorize. I told Clara that night, sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor as if humility had a position. "Before," I said, and made the word an offering. She listened like a river listens to stones. She pressed her forehead to my chest and said, "Don't humiliate me. Don't humiliate yourself. If the story can be told in our language, then tell it. If it's a dialect that makes you smaller, stop speaking it." "It makes me larger," I said. "Not grander, just more exact." "Then keep being exact," she said, "and come home." The foundation scent took shape around the mess we'd made. We settled on a structure that would read as restraint to the people who need the world to think they're noble. A bergamot opening wrapped in rosemary, an iris heart that refused to be pretty, a base of oak moss that had insisted on being invited after it was told it wasn't fashionable. I worked late and slept too little and let Celeste's messages be the throat clearing of my phone. We saw each other twice more, once in a park at noon with dogs and lattes making a choir, once at a storage unit where the concrete made every sound private. We were careful. We were not cowards. Then the shoe that wasn't mine dropped. Adam was photographed leaving a hotel with a woman who wasn't his wife and wasn't an investor. It was a grainy shot, but the internet knows how to enhance gossip until it sparkles. The caption behaved like a knife pretending to be a spoon. My phone vibrated all morning with nothing I wanted to read. Celeste arrived at my studio with her assurance unbuttoned. She set her bag down and the sound was almost an oath. "He's furious," she said. "Not about what you think, about not controlling the story. He wants to turn this into a narrative where he's wronged by the idea of privacy. He wants me in that narrative, graceful and wounded. I am neither." "What do you want?" I asked. "To choose my own stage directions," she said, "and not to burn your house to heat mine." I could have kept quiet and been a good silkscreen for other people's events. Instead, I did a foolish thing and called it brave. I offered an exit that smelled like rain. "Let me make one bottle only you own," I said. "A private formula that doesn't hide you, that marks you. Wear it the night you tell him you're done. It will cling to everything he thinks he owns. If he crowds you with narrative, the room will lean toward you anyway. Scent is a crown when someone tries to make you smaller." "That's petty and beautiful," she said. "Make me that crown." I built it on the bones of the first thing I'd made for her, then dialed the kindness down and the truth up. To the citrus, I added bitter orange peel because acceptance is often bitter first. I laced the heart with narcissus, the flower of looking at oneself until the mirror admits it's impressed. I put smoke in the base, cade and guaiac, a clean burn rather than a smolder, and tied it to her skin with salted musk. When she wore it in the studio, we both stood still as if a meteor had just held the door. The night she left him, she didn't ask me to come. That would have missed the point. She texted afterward, "It worked. The room smelled like yes." Then, "Thank you for not trying to own my victory." The scandal pivoted. The city gets full on a story and then needs fruit. Celeste moved into a building with brick that didn't pretend. She sent me one photo of a window with plants arguing about the sun. Adam hired a new perfumer because men like him love replacing things that insist on being plural. I bottled the remaining base of the patron scent for him and wrote a neat invoice. We were done. I thought that would be the end of my intrigue, but endings are just edits with manners. A week later, the florist downstairs buzzed my intercom. "Delivery," she sang, her vowels wrapped in petals. The bouquet was ridiculous, peonies big as apologies, garden roses blushing like they'd heard a joke too late, and tucked inside was a sealed envelope with my name in a tight hand. There was no return address, just a card. "Your crown smelled like smoke. Your hand smelled like rain. Don't use both on the same day. See." I held the card until the paper remembered me. Then I put it in the matchbox under our rule, where Tinder and law keep each other honest. Clara and I went out that night to a bar with seated neon and a bartender who made gin confess its sins. We spoke in future tense and put both our phones face down. She leaned into me and said, "I love the version of you that returns to me smelling like the work and not the war." I promised her that version would keep winning. I still make lies in bottles. People ask for youth and I hand them patience that thinks it's citrus. They ask for sex and I give them warmth that pretends to be wood. They ask for forgiveness and I build them a church that fits in a clasped hand. Sometimes a stranger walks past me trailing a chord I wrote, and I watch the room change temperature. I try not to look smug. At night we close our windows and let the city be loud without guardianship. The matchbox rule holds. If I desire someone, I say it before desire turns into the kind of creativity that blows holes in walls. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's no. Sometimes it's tell me why. The point isn't the consent. It's the soundtrack. The studio at Last Light is a temple that worships the jar. I cap, label, and tuck the bottles in their cardboard beds. I rinse the pipettes until they shine like small bones. I turn off the big lamp and let the shelves glow faintly with amber sleep. I lock the door and rub the ghost of labdanum from my knuckles. On the sidewalk, the air has its own ideas and that's fine. Perfume doesn't make people true. It makes them audible. When I slide into bed beside Clara, she breathes me in and smiles. "Rain," she says against my throat, "and a little smoke." I kiss her hairline, throat, shoulder, careful, devoted. "Crown and home," I say, in that order. "Before," she reminds me and hooks her leg over mine like an oath. Outside, someone laughs. A bus sighs. The city turns itself toward morning. Inside, we keep the matchbox rule where our hands can find it in the dark, and the air smells like what we've promised, which is to say, like a choice.